thinking about your history, why don't we start off there? How did you kind of get started in doing what you're doing now? How did you make this as like an audio engineer your profession? You want to start there?
Well, I don't know if audio engineer has ever quite been my profession. I mean, like that's what I aspired to, but I got kind of sidetracked. I mean, like, I did 3 years in media arts at Sheridan College in Oakville, Ontario. That course doesn't exist anymore. They actually morphed that into a 4-year degree program. But we were working at a degree level when I did it. And actually, my diploma was not even in audio; it was in multimedia. So, I could program, like video with like, a bank of like 21 slide projectors and all these multi-screens and kind of cool shit like that, because that was going to be the future. And how many shows have you ever seen like that? Anyway, I got when I came home from college, it's like hey, great college diploma there, here's your roofing job, so that's why I caution people who are considering post-secondary education, especially something in a creative field like this. It's like that might not be the best place to spend your money. I talked to a lot of kids who watched the show. Did you go to audio school and did it get you a job? That's the big thing, because what the kids say is very different from what, say, a school's recruiting department might say. That's for sure.
Oh yeah.
And so anyway, I wound up getting hired at Chrysler here in Windsor, and I said, "Fuck this! I'm not going to let my education go to waste." So I opened a studio in like '98. Like I graduated in '93 and opened a studio in '98, and just worked at it. I got involved in the Andy Sneap Forum around 2005. Then I finally started getting some interesting results. And I think it was 2012. I did my first, real studio. Well, I did a video on drum tuning. You actually look on my channel; it's still there. I actually got several 100,000 views, but it's a it was a very dry, very matter of fact kind of video. And then, I was working with a bunch of bands, and I'm like, well, everybody's kind of making the same mistakes. So I thought let's do a crazy ass video about, the day-to-day of what it's really like for bands and what they should know when they come into the studio so they don't waste their money. I'm like, except I don't want this to be dry. I'm just going to fucking go for it. I'm going to say what's on my mind, and damn the torpedoes, as it were. And I don't care if this tanks my business. I'm going down swinging. So I just said, fuck it. I'm turning off the filters and fucking saying exactly what I feel.
Well, Glenn, that's like a really interesting point, because I think what your appeal is to a lot of people is that you're very unfiltered. And you say that what is kind of the truth, and it's in many ways for people. I think sometimes I know in your channel you address a lot of trolls, and it's funny to see that, but at the same time, I think the reason why so many people troll in the first place is because it's an uncomfortable truth. And those kinds of things. And, even as a professor at these places where we strip your money, I actually tell my students too, I said, don't expect this to be something that you're going to
stripping. It's more like extraction
or extortion.
You might have to strip on the side to make a living. Right?
But I tell my students quite often, I say, in this industry, this is really a people business. It's really something that you have to make of yourself. You can't expect to just waltz into a studio and expect to get a job. That's not the thing that's going to happen. I in my experience, I did like 5 different internships. None of them hired me, and it was because they weren't in a position to do so. So it's like,
as most studios are, like the whole commercial studio industry doesn't exist like it used to, say 30 years ago. It's like everybody's working at home these days. And here's the thing: I'll talk. I get kids with diplomas coming in, say, hey, hire me. And the first thing, the first thing I ask them is, okay, great. What are your video skills like?
Yeah.
And I get the deer in the headlights look because of that. And I'm screaming at audio schools these days.
Oh my gosh.
Teach your kids how to fucking edit video, because we need that more than how to play some microphone. Well, because the industry's changed.
I am totally on board with that. I actually teach my students DaVinci Resolve, because I tell them, I say, you can't just be an audio guy. You got to be a multimedia person, and
absolutely.
you got to learn how to edit. Because I do a lot of post-production with my school. So I said, okay, this is a huge part of things. And if you really want to start making like a living, part of that is making content, and it's not just going to be audio. So,
Well, so we say the same thing in our business, though. Ken, me as a guitar player,
Absolutely.
as a solo musician, I don't make a living off Spotify and iTunes and all those things. I don't even make a living off just YouTube. As you know, Glenn, you're up there and subscribers, and YouTube pays you. Sure, that's great, but just that alone is probably not a livable wage, I wouldn't imagine. So you've got to learn how to market. You've got to learn how to do these other things. You can still do what you love, but it's like 6 or 7 streams of income that you build, not just the one, the one golden prize.
Exactly. And that's the thing. I mean, like, I didn't know you could make a living doing this shit. That's for sure. I mean, I started making a couple of videos. I had fun with it. And then 2014 is when I decided to, really get serious about it and try. I was actually working on a film, and I got fired by the director because I hate working with morons. And this was it was a complete disaster. This director had no idea what the fuck they were doing. They loved wasting people's time. And it's just like, I was trying to get this shoot organized, and apparently I overstepped. And it's like, yes, I'm sorry. It's 2 a.m. We don't have our shots. Everybody's got to work in the morning, and you're still figuring out what the fuck you want to do. Yes, of course I'm going to step in. Anyway, so I got fired off that, and I'm like, oh, really? Okay, watch what I do next. And I called up my buddy. I'm like, let me borrow your Axe effects, because those were just new tech at the time and whatnot. Yeah. And so I shot it out against some amps, and that was Axe effects versus the real deal. That was my first attempt at doing it seriously, and then it's just kind of snowballed from there. And then I don't know, spring 2015, I did my first stupid musician text, and that's when the channel really took off. I haven't done those in a while, so it's good to know I can do the show without it. And I'd like to revisit maybe at one point, but that's not the focus of the channel.
I think I actually contributed to one of those things a long time ago.
I'm open to maybe revisiting, and just people got to send me some interesting texts.
That's hilarious.
I'll put them back on. But yeah, that all came out of just a couple of online groups, and I'm like, this is fucking hilarious. Can I make a show about this? Or it's like, yeah, just blank out the names. Okay, great. And there we are. So,
oh my gosh! Well,
what I love the most, man, is when the band comes to record in New England studio, and they're like, "Hey, we're just writing our song now." I love how you went off about that. That was hilarious.
That's like fucking, half the fucking bands come in and they're just not prepared. That's the one thing. I don't think I've ever had a situation where I've ever said to a band, "You know what, guys, I think you practice too much."
Yeah. Right. Oh my gosh. Actually, Glenn, have you ever played in a metal band or anything like that?
Yes. And I recorded in a band as well. And I remember that, it's like, I remember there's a little tape of me singing in a band floating around out there somewhere. But I remember, we practiced for a month ahead of going into the studio, and we practiced our asses off. We knew those songs from front to back. We recorded the whole thing basically live, and I sang over the live recording. Okay. And, the band kicked ass. I think we did it in 2 days. And it was great. I mean, like, it was what did we do that on? We did it on an old hill board and an Atari 8-track, like a 1-inch deck with a broken track 7.
Wow.
So we had to get it all down in 7 tracks and no auto tune. You actually had to be able to sing back then, and you had to be able to perform. And I remember, I think I watched, before recording, I was so excited about it. I remember watching like Year and a Half of the Life of Metallica Part 1 every night for a week before we went into the studio. I mean, just to key myself up for it. And when I started recording bands, I didn't get that. I got a bunch of fucking idiots who didn't know what the fuck they wanted and basically aligned against their own goals, and, just walk in the studio and expecting me to fucking wave a magic wand and I'm going to suddenly make them sound good. And unfortunately, that seems to be pretty much universal. I mean, like, listen to modern metal these days. We don't get the musicians on the record anymore. We get a lackluster performance that's been enhanced in every conceivable way possible to make it passable.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that too.
Sucks.
Do you think that's a big reason why? And I don't want to generalize, but I like a lot of people I know, even younger kids, prefer older music, 70s and 80s metal, hard rock, or whatever, over the majority of what's out there today. Do you think we've gone overboard with technology, like auto-tune, moving things around perfectly? I mean,
well, there's the old phrase, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I think we hit the pinnacle there with the Black Album in terms of metal production, and then we went way too far with the ability to fuck with things, because we don't, I mean, like, if you're doing dance music, okay, great, let's put it on a fucking grid. That's fine, but metal is not dance music. Metal has always been about cranking up your amps way too loud and pissing off your parents, and it's been about working as a cohesive whole in a garage somewhere. It's not about perfection, because perfect in metal is fucking boring.
Hey guys, Jason here with the Metal Mastermind. Ken and I wanted to share this short clip of our recent podcast with Glenn Fricker. Now, we encourage you to listen to the entire episode. Glenn goes over a lot of his history and just gives a wealth of information in that episode. It's episode number 55. Metal Mastermind podcast is out there on Spotify and also Apple Podcasts. If you'd like to see the complete video version here on YouTube, consider joining our YouTube membership program. Glenn, we'd like to thank you. If you happen to see this, man, Ken and I both thank you from the bottom of our hearts. That meant so much to us for you to be on our show. Now, guys, if you're not subscribed to Glenn's channel, Spectra Sound Studios, well, just click that right up there and make sure you subscribe to his channel. As you know, he gives a wealth of information to musicians. We'll also have a link to Glenn's channel in the description of this video as well. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, as always, create your own sound.